Hello. Um, Early this morning, I read The Rule of Saint Benedict. Shoot my cover. I heard about this book by listening to Jason, his channel Byways of Bookland. He talked about it in his top 10 nonfiction book tag video. I happen to have the book on my shelf, and for one reason or another, I've never read it, and listening to Jason talk about it motivated me to pick it up. And it's a very compact work. I mean, it might have been 50 pages, and it really gripped me. It spoke to me almost. It spoke to me immediately. It begins by talking about different types of monks, and the book is it's a hand guide to leading a monastic lifestyle, I guess the Benedictine monk monastic lifestyle. And at the beginning it says there's different kinds of monks, and you can kind of identify where you fall. And it talks about monks that are wandering aimlessly without guidance. And if you've been following my channel, or if you're new, you might know that I live in a tiny house, and other than going to work, I don't leave my house very often. So I spend my days at work or at home reading with my two little cats. And sometimes it feels like a monastic lifestyle, or at least solitary. And to hear about, are you living your life without guidance, spoke to me. The first few chapters were the most philosophical, or had philosophical ideas that I could see how they apply to me, or I should say would apply to anybody. Living a life of consideration and obedience to God or your fellow man, speaking with restraint. That's a great line. The tongue holds the key to life and death. Beautiful line. So, talking with care, and I can't think of a good way of putting it, but your brain has a tongue too. So, taking care to the thoughts that you have. How do you think? The quality of your thoughts determines the happiness of your life. So, really great things to think about, whether or not you're a Benedictine monk. This chapter on humility. And the book is full of great passages, really strong, powerful language. I want to read this. The first step of humility, then, is that a man keeps the fear of God always before his eyes and never forgets it. He must constantly remember everything God has commanded, keeping in mind that all who despise God will burn in hell for their sins, and all who fear God have everlasting life awaiting them. While he guards himself at every moment from sins and vices of thought or tongue, of hand or foot, of self-will or bodily desire, let him recall that he is always seen by God in heaven, that his actions everywhere are in God's sight and are reported by angels at every hour. It's great writing. It's just strong, muscular, powerful language. Like, if I went to a church, this is the kind of sermon that I want to hear. It's great. what else do I want to say? Like I said, so the first couple chapters um, made me believe that I was going to be reading some philosophical tract that, in a lot of ways, aligned with um, um, aspects of my own philosophy that I believe in. There was a lot of it that reminded me of Stoicism, the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. Um, and then the book changes gears, and it's really interesting because the name of the book is The Rule of Saint Benedict, and the book really is a rule book. It's a handbook that is complete with your daily routine, your meal schedule, your work schedule, your sleep schedule, uh, your prayer schedule, exactly which psalms are going to be read at which times of the day and what time of the year. Um, when do you wake up in winter? When do you wake up in the summertime? A whole um, organization with how all of the monks interact with each other. It's sort of governed in a very specific way. Um, how do you take care of the sick and the old and the young within the monastery, and then also outside of the monastery? How do you um, receive guests? How do you receive different kinds of guests, whether it's just a total stranger knocking on your door, or somebody that actually wants to be a monk, or is it a fellow monk? Is it a priest that's stopping by? Do they want to stay temporarily or permanently? And it gives you a whole guide to how you should be behaving and thinking and believing in all sorts of circumstances, and at all points of your life. It talks about how you should behave when you're young and inexperienced, how you should behave when you're older and wiser. Punishments. What do you do when someone misbehaves? And a lot of it seems strict, but it's a handbook for a monastic lifestyle. So I think it would be very odd for someone to read it and think, wow, that's kind of that's a little bit too strict. They're monks. You kind of want monks to be strict, I think. I do, anyway. You don't want lackadaisical monks. And there was one line in here which I'm not going to be able to find, but it was back where it was talking about humility, and talked about how it was something about reciting. One of the priests says that I am a worm, and I want to check Les Miserables, because it reminded me of one of my favorite scenes in Les Miserables, where the priest visits the atheist, and the atheist has this really strong argument or speech, talking about all the hypocrisies of the church and all the cruelties that are put down from God. And the priest sits there and just is silently listening to him. And so the atheist finishes his grand speech, and that now we're going to turn to the priest and see what kind of rebuttal or response we're going to get. And the priest says, "Vermis sum," or "vermis sum." And I think it was footnoted, or I had to look it up, I can't remember, but short little piece of Latin that I didn't understand. And I looked it up, and it, I guess, translates to, "I'm a worm." And that was his response. Really, that's a scene that I'll never forget. how do you respond to someone who's being indignant and shouting and yelling? To respond with humility, to call yourself a worm, I think really speaks. Um, I actually I can see myself rereading the first couple chapters, um, at maybe not as much as I might turn to Marcus Aurelius, but quite often. I mean, it's really powerful stuff. I probably wouldn't go back to read like the actual scheduling, um, for obvious reasons, um, but really fascinating. I'm glad I read it. Jason, if you're watching, thank you for the recommendation and talking about it. I would love to hear, a full book review or a series on this book. Um, I'll end it there. I hope this was kind of interesting. Leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching.